Welcome back to Gather 2021, presented by IAMAI and Games 24/7, powered by AppsFlyer in association with Trachea. The theme for this edition is Digital Gaming, the Next Leap. We now have an interesting panel discussion on the investment scenario in India. Please join me in welcoming the speakers, Mr. Joe, Corporate Development, IR, and Strategic Partnerships at MPL, followed by our panelists, Mr. Gaurav Kapoor, Chief Financial Officer, Baazi Games, Ms. Salone Sehgal, General Partner, Lumikai Fund, Mr. Pankaj Karna, Managing Director, Maples Capital Advisors, and Mr. Suman Paul, CMO, Ability Games. A very warm welcome to all of you. Over to you, Mr. Joe.
Thanks, Javisha, and hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Joe. I lead Corp Dev and Corporate Finance at Mobile Premier League, India's largest mobile esports and skill gaming platform. So, as many folks know, online digital sports games have grown at an unprecedented pace. For context, the industry is less than 2 decades old, and according to some reports, it's worth close to $1 billion in overall revenue. Recent reports show that 1/4 of the total internet, amounting to well over 300 million users in India alone, are engaging in some form of online gaming. And frankly, based on some of the reports I've seen, this number actually seems understated. This trend is booming in India. Based on a few other reports, it looks like India will be close to 500-600 million gamers over the next 3 years or so. And out of that number, there are a few PC and console gamers, but the vast majority of that is really driven by mobile. Online gaming is a sunrise industry at the moment, and although there have been multiple lockdowns that are quite unfortunate due to COVID, one flip side of it, one positive aspect of that, has been an acceleration in gaming. Globally, esports is a flourishing market, with the global esports audience expected to grow at a CAGR of about 14% over the next 4 years, reaching 250 million esports enthusiasts globally, which is a massive, massive audience. This rate of growth has outstripped even the most optimistic predictions by several experts. So for this panel, we're going to be talking a lot about the industry's growth. You have a fantastic panel here. You have folks from the gaming side, from the investment side, and real luminaries here. So I'm really excited to grill all of them. And we're going to be talking about what's so exciting about the Indian gaming industry. What are the big opportunities? Where the potential is for this overall market. From my own experience at MPL, I mean, it's been a really wild ride, and honestly, we've been very, very lucky to surf an incredible wave over the last 3 years. So we're very, very excited about the overall industry in India, and we think there's fantastic opportunity for India as a country to actually take leadership position. But without further ado, let me actually pass it along to the panelists to introduce themselves. So first, maybe we can start with you, Salone. If you could just give a brief bio, like an introduction of yourself, and then we just go around the table and get started.
Sure. Thank you, Joe. Well, thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Salone Sehgal. I'm a general partner at Lumikai. We're India's first dedicated gaming and interactive media VC. I've been fortunate to see the games and new media industry from all sides of the table as an investor, as an entrepreneur, and an M&A banker. Prior to this, I was with a fund called London Venture Partners, a leading European gaming VC, which pioneered investing in gaming as an asset class. The fund had a track record of investing in 50-odd companies, which delivered eventually $18 billion in shareholder value. Before that, I used to be the CEO and co-founder of a venture-backed gaming studio building immersive social worlds for female audiences. And I spent the first 6 to 7 years of my life in investment banking and private equity, was with Morgan Stanley and Barclays, and with over $10 million of M&A experience. So very happy to be here.
Great. Suman, how about yourself? Why don't you go next?
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Suman Paul. I take care of entire marketing and sales gamut here at Ability Games. And in Ability Games, we have a set of RMG brands starting from 11 wickets, Rummy 24, Poker, as well as we are launching another two games called Housey Tombola or Ludo. And before that, I worked with a Denmark company called Hulpo. I was there as a consultant. I consulted a lot of tech firms as well, starting from Macintosh there in US. And before that, I worked with Oracle mostly on penetration testing. They're in Bangalore in Australia for 4 to 5 years, and this is about me. And I'm really excited about this, discussion, and I'm looking forward to, learn a lot of stuff from you guys. I'm real excited.
Great. Pankaj, how about yourself? Why don't you go next?
Thanks, Joe. I lead Maple Capital, which is a boutique investment bank and accelerator based in New Delhi. We've been active for over 10 years, and prior to this, I used to lead Grant Thornton's investment banking and multiple roles at Rabobank and BNP Paribas. We've been focusing on gaming over the last 2, 3 years in India, and our report of last year clearly gave the headline on how the what is going to follow. And since then, obviously, investments have exceeded what we projected, and we've had the first successful IPO in the market. Currently, we are advising number of international companies and domestic companies on various aspects of M&A, private equity, and also looking at some early stage investments. Thank you.
Fantastic. Gaurav, over to you.
Thanks, Joe. Hi, everybody. Great to be here. My name is Gaurav Kapoor. I'm the Chief Financial Officer with the Baazi Games Group. Uh, so, as a finance person, I'm obviously responsible for all the financial actions of the company. But beyond that, I also look at compliance, investor relations, and the overall fund management for the company. A little bit about Baazi Games. Baazi Games has been a gaming platform. We started off our journey in 2014 with Poker Baazi, which was our first and foremost app to be launched. And over a period of last 5 years, we've gone into other real cash gaming platforms. We've developed our own platforms called Rummy Baazi and Balle Baazi. We are basically a player-centric platform, and we stand today with close to about 10 million users. And with the innovative product offerings which we have done, and Baazi Games is actually now, in 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 the reckoning with the top in India. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. So Gaurav, actually, let me actually begin this discussion with you, if you don't mind. So,
Sure.
would love to hear, right? I mean, Gaurav, you and Suman, right? You both represent gaming companies. So I'd love to understand, Gaurav, first from yourself. What do you make of the recent boom in gaming in India, right? What is driving this boom? What are the interesting trends? Do you think this is going to last? What are the drivers here?
See, actually, if you look at it, the first 9 months of 2020 has actually seen a rise in the number of mobile game downloads in India. Comparing to the worldwide, 7.3 billion installs, ranking 17% in the market share. It's a tremendous data, and that's because India, as we know, is India. So we do not, we should not call ourselves a country. We should call ourselves a continent, actually, with the number of users and the kind of things we can do. I think the overall growth of the industry has been due to the multiple reasons. If we look at the penetration of mobile, the availability of internet, the gaming sector booming because of the COVID, is a great source of entertainment. People looking at multiple options to be there. So I think all these things put together have actually pushed the gaming industry into the foray, into the forefront.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Suman, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, actually, Joe, what I have seen from my business is when the pandemic was hit last year in 2020, But we saw there is a predominant growth on card games, whereas there was no live matches happening there in India or in abroad. So our fantasy gaming platform, 11 wickets, they were struggling a little. And I
Mm.
was thinking that what exactly we can do here, but at that point we launched Rummy, and we got good users to play on, and we didn't actually expect that we'll be getting that kind of cost per acquisition at that point. But thereon I saw a very enormous growth of our product Rummy, and needless to say that even though we have been seeing that in one perspective, seeing how many gamers are there, but what I observed in last couple of months is even if there are different games, be it RMG or any online game, when we skip that part and we get into actual live or online games, there are millions of viewers as well.
Mm.
So even if somebody is
Right.
playing on my platform, I try to understand their behavior, just to
Mm.
ease up the process, just to give them an experience which they cannot get in other brands. So this is where
Right.
they will be sticking to my platform. But I have been trying to get into different ways where we can activate those viewers as a gamers. I don't know how that thing will boil down to, but I'm hopeful. I'm trying different methods so that we can connect these dots, and I am able to activate all those viewers as my consumer. But I don't know what thing will, but I have been trying different campaigns as well. But more or less, what Gaurav just said was, it's pretty good and it's almost the same. So that
Yeah.
was my take on it.
That's an interesting take, right? The idea that we're not only seeing a massive growth in people who are gaming, but that it's entered part of culture. It's a part of culture now, so that people are
Yeah.
also happy to watch, right? Watch gamers. That's really interesting. So let me flip it to you, right? So when you look at the market, can you walk us through, what is your investment thesis for India? I think it's you're a pioneer, right? I mean, setting up a gaming focused fund just for India. I think it's great to be so focused, but you must have a very very strong thesis on the market. So would love to understand, what is your investment thesis in India? What are the most interesting themes that you're seeing here as an investor that you're keen to back in the market?
Yeah, no, that's a really, really great question. Look, I've tracked the global markets and the India market for a very long time. And, I think Gaurav remarked as well that now you've got demand catching up with the supply. And never before has gaming usage, gaming
Mm.
adoption, gaming infrastructure, and payments have converged in a manner that we probably, growing up in the ecosystem, have never seen. And this is the very first time that we have seen payment infrastructures now supporting game usage. Uh, India last year registered the fastest new paying user growth in the world. So that's been incredible. And now we've done primary research, and we have a research report that is going to come out, which lays out the size of the market and lays out certain user behavior. But we've already seen various data points already telling us that not only are Indians monetizing via ads, but they're also monetizing via in-app purchases, and there is
Hmm.
early signs of behavior of tipping and gifting and virtual gifting that is already taking place. Now, when we map that to, let's say, other markets which have witnessed inflection points, we can see very similar markers, right? If we look at, let's say, the China market about 15 years back, or whether we look at the Turkey market about a couple of years back, we can see the very same kind of inflection points. Now, in China, in 2004, 70% of the game titles and 60% of game revenues came from foreign titles, foreign publishers. They were largely South Korean and Taiwanese developers. In less than 3 years, by 2007, 80% of revenues came from domestic game industry. And in 10 years after that, China was top grossing. It had grossed about $30 billion and beat the US,
Right.
right? There were certain markers in that evolution which contributed to that. The first was the proliferation of smartphones and the 3G networks. The second was the proliferation of payment systems. All of it that we're seeing now. The third was the push around techno nationalism and pushing make in China. Again, a very similar moment that we're seeing here. The fourth was around Chinese companies. Three Chinese companies went public in 2006 and 2007. There was a lot of strategic M&A investment that happened. Again, similar markers here. Nazara Games going public. We've seen Stillfront acquiring Moonfrog. We've seen MTG acquire Play Simple. So, when you look and map and look at all those markers, you can identify those for the India market as well. And when you look at the depth of talent, the emergence now of India first content, and the local investor appetite, it's the perfect recipe and the perfect storm for the golden age of, let's say, gaming for the next 5 to 10 years.
That's very interesting. A lot of game developers outside India, at least, often joke that India is a DAO farm, right? So India is a great place to launch your game if you just need to show DAO. And I think what you've said about the growth in payment infrastructure is a great point, right? I think that is a real inflection point where people are not just playing, but they're paying, and that's obviously that makes the market much more compelling. Very interesting. Let's flip it to you, Pankaj. Over at Maple, you have a unique perspective, right? I think you're obviously advising investors, you're advising founders and management teams of gaming companies, and you're also doing your own independent research. Now, as you know, when you're going through the data, I think there are a lot of data points that the market sees and the market talks about, that everyone's very buzzy about. But what is in the data that people don't really see, right? What is there in the information? What are the trends, the important trends that you think are happening? What are the kind of key messages in the data that are overlooked by the broader, call it VC community or investing community or kind of even broader gaming community?
Thanks, Joe. I think VC community is quite thorough, so I think they would try and capture most data points. But having said that, what India is a big market. I think we are a big volume market and still growing value market. That's the way we see it. So it's 15% plus of global traffic on gaming goes through India. So that's a pretty big number. Value wise, we have not even 1-2% kind of thing, right? So I think that is the big thing, right? I mean, there is a lot of eyeballs there onto gaming platforms in areas. Second is, I think the first wave of gaming happened on low hanging fruit in India, which is really conversion of card games into, and we have, Gaurav from Baazi can reattest that, and also Suman talked about it. These were all low hanging fruit because these were natural physical gaming environments converting into digital. And that basically is a very big market, and they've discovered, and there are multiple 1,000 crore plus companies in this space. And this is, I mean, eye opening, right? I mean, today they're bigger than the IPO company actually, in terms of if you were to look at pure card game companies in India. So there is, so that piece is big. I think skill games and the aptitude of Indians to get into skill games is very kind of DNA linked kind of thing. So there is a lot of
Right.
Indian DNA into that, and that is why by nature Indians are very uh, you know attracted to gaming as a space. So that's the other thing. Uh, I think the way the sports and the fantasy side has gone, which has been phenomenal, right? And the way that can evolve to both esports and to other elements and other sports beyond cricket is going to be very interesting. I think the scope of it as events, as people, its democratization of sports actually to the ground level, and I think that has got huge potential as well. Casual gaming, I think one would see. I would say one would be keen to see some level of better quality studio setups to create quality games out of India. I think that is where we are lagging in terms of games which are benchmarked to the PUBGs or Fortnites of this world are few and far and evolving. So that's something which I think uh, the big discoveries may happen there as well. Actually, in my view.
And let me just dig in on that because I think it's a great point, right? And I'd like to open it up to the rest of the team. So why do you think we're lagging there, right? We have so much talent, right? You have these factories, right? Basically, these tremendous schools that are just churning great talent, best in class. But why haven't we seen, a fort like an Epic Games come out of India or a massive kind of gaming, I mean, or a Riot Games or whatever it may be? Why haven't we seen that come out of India?
Yeah, so I'm very happy to take that. I mean, if you the sector, gaming as a sector, has been historically undercapitalized, right? If you look at the amount of capital that has come into India in gaming in the last year alone, that's about 1.5 billion. That's more than what Indian gaming industry as a whole received over the last 6 years. So the option for young, passionate game developers who are looking to build, let's say, India first titles or titles for the world, have had to do it against very stark odds and with very little capital. So either they have been forced into doing deals with publishers, which is low hanging fruit, or gone after, let's say, the very obvious sectors and the traditional card based games, which monetize very quickly, so that these companies were not dependent on external capital and could very quickly start being revenue generating from day one. Or they had, they went through multiple pivots. And if you speak to, let's say, the first generation of gaming entrepreneurs, and if you speak to Nitish at Nazara and his journey of how he took, he was a 21-year-old overnight success to take Nazara to where it is, and they weathered multiple storms, and they only raised capital back in, and they were forced to take certain decisions to keep afloat and make sure that they were revenue generating, so that they weren't dependent on the external environment for capital. And that's a major constraint. Now, in the last 18 months, that's changed. There is capital coming. So now we've looked at over 700 game development studios in the country. We've backed content studios, and also the understanding of how to back game development studios is very different, right? Game development is not like consumer tech investing. It's a gaming as an asset class, as an investable asset class, is very different. There's no problem solution framework that you can apply in gaming like VCs. There's no painkiller vitamin approach because you're building entertainment products. TAM is often immaterial and very difficult to ascertain. It's very difficult to know whether a game will do well or not, especially if you're making content bets. So unless you're entrenched in the sector, you don't know where the sector is going, and you don't know what the trends are, because in gaming, trends change almost every 2 years. So for a investor to keep track of this industry, you really need to be devoted to it. You need to be dedicated to it, very much like the way Lumikai is. So I think there's a lot of that changing. There's a lot now of strategic investor interest. Krafton, with the makers of Battlegrounds Mobile India, are a great example of that. People who are coming to India and now investing capital. There's a lot of international financial capital interest, and MPL. You guys are a great example of raising money from large private equities and growth capital funds who traditionally have eschewed gaming as an asset class, and now waking up to the fact that this asset class makes returns. So things are changing. I mean, we've done Studio Sira, we've done Bombay Play, we've done All Star Games. We're seeing incredible traction in some of our platform plays, whether it's a Loco or whether it's an LOLO. So I think the way gaming is looked at now by the venture capital ecosystem has really changed, and that in itself is going to be a catalyst.
Great. Gaurav, Suman, Pankaj, anything to add to that?
Yeah, and I just wanted to add on that. I think where the content piece comes in, and where you are creating content IPR, which is going to potentially give you gains in the future, is very different from the mining that has happened in the industry, right? Mining is basically the low hanging fruit. And this is more like, Hollywood, Bollywood kind of concept movie creation, but it's a movie with a long shelf life if it goes well. If it doesn't go well, then it's pretty it crashes, right? So the mindset is different. The risk returns are very different, and you need, as Saloni said, you need a very different kind of investor who can appreciate both art, technology, and ability to see it through in terms of how consumer will kind of look at this. So I think that is really the big difference in terms of the studio investment model, and that obviously requires big capital, and it requires an institutional framework to create a pipeline, and you have a hit and miss strategy within that, and all of that, which not many companies in India can afford, despite whatever they have raised and they're competing and what they're competing against. So I think that is really where it is. So it is about big capital, but we are known to be bootstrapped kind of country to create great content. So you never know, there might be a few ideas that will then create that big capital flows into the sector.
Right. Okay.
So, Joe,
Yeah, sorry, go ahead,
just
Gaurav.
wanted to add. So I think I tend to broadly agree with Saloni and Pankaj what they're trying to say, but I feel that India is just about starting off now on the gaming side. In last 12 months,
Mhm.
we've seen a lot of
Yeah.
stuff happening. There was obviously a lack of capital originally. Now the capital is coming in, and that money is getting pumped into the business. I think the way to see it is also, if you look at the ancillary opportunities which are developing, like the live streamers, coaches, mentors, marketing agents, all this is now springing up, because that's how you actually rate an industry and how it's going. I think even on the job side, if you look at specialty jobs like visual artists, animators, visual effect editors, sound designers, we are all looking for those kind of people now. I think this is the time when India is now pushing its way forward into the gaming industry, and I'm very hopeful that in next 12 months we'll see a lot of growth, and something which is of that top quality coming out of India also.
Great. Yeah, no, that's I think it's a great perspective. Let me flip it a little bit. This is let me start with you, Suman, because I'd love to get a gaming perspective on this. So, we have three players in the real money space here. So regulatory is always on our minds, right? And I'd love to, I think there's a lot, globally at least, I think there's been a lot of positive movement in the sector. And I think in India as well, there's been real fantastic kind of acknowledgement from the various governments, and things seem to be moving in a good direction regulatorily. But I'd love to get your take on it. What is your outlook on regulatory? How do you manage that? How do you see that affecting your business? What is your prognosis, if you will, or view? Right? Are you optimistic? Are you cautious? What's there?
Very nice question, actually. If I have to answer, I need to start maybe a couple of years back when we just started off with our poker line and fantasy gaming. I mean, in the RMG sector. Now, if I see right now, there are no if in number of companies they have been doing business, and people they're accepting it. I mean, if I see 2 years back, people were not aware of it. First, number two, even if they used to play, the number of players and the quality of players were not good. I mean, they used to come play and they usually go. We couldn't incentivize in terms of the lifetime value of any customer. But last 2 years, as everything passed and we are sitting here, in 2021, I see people and the industry getting mature every day. There were users where they used to be very skeptic coming on the platform and asking us that whether this is legal, illegal, or whatever that is. But now people they come and they do their KYCs, by their own. I mean, why I'm bringing that instance is because when initially started our this line of businesses, what happened was we had a team where they used to call those new registers to ask them that are you willing to do your KYC so that you can use our platform full fledged. Now there is a long queue of customers because we are pretty strict and we adhere to each and every norms given by every state. So we are very cautious about it that we do not violate anything. If some state is saying that we are limited in terms of promoting or allowing our residents on online platform, be it fantasy gaming, be it rummy, poker, doesn't matter. So we have been very cautious about it. Now people are coming and they're in queue just to get their KYC verified. Now of course, we would need a regulatory body, which will help us to regulate everything because every day or every year we are getting bigger, and we all know the aspect of games, in pretty much hopeful. There have been quite a few judgment which was on and off on our side, but I'm very hopeful that we'll be adapting it because until you dream it, you'll not be able to achieve it. So we are on a verge where we are evolving towards something new, and I'm very hopeful about it. And I hope very soon we will be the industry will be much more mature. There would be a identified regulatory body, and there'd be much more competition in the market as well. So I'm very optimistic about it.
Got it. Gaurav, anything to add on that?
I think broadly I do agree with Suman that this is the way to go. I think the boost can be achieved by government actively taking active, like introducing a light touch regulation, which can actually guide the whole RMG sector. Behave in India, but a light touch regulation which can actually guide the whole RMG sector. Maybe, and in future, moving on to a uniform national policy so that the state discretion can be reduced. Because right now, all the uncertainty comes when we look at various states across India. Like I said, India is a continent. It's comprised of every part, every state which thinks on its own. So I think that uniform policy to ensure transparency is required, and that would actually bring in a lot of clarity.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Salone, Pankaj, from an investor perspective, right? How should investors be thinking about context of no, right? I think it's really, I mean, there's one aspect of it which is just regulatory risk around real money, but I think the other part is gaming as an industry does attract a lot of regulation, given that it is very popular among the youth and they spend a lot of time on it. How should investors be thinking about the regulatory risk, and do you see that getting better over time?
Yeah, should I take that if that's okay?
Sure,
So,
Pankaj, why don't you go first?
we looked at it very, very deeply. And, the bird's eye view is 86 to 87% of the country is free to play games of skill. That's the bird's eye view. Now, if you go a bit more micro in that, obviously there has been a lot of distortions, state by state, all of that. So I think that it is a point of concern, and if that was as Gaurav kind of hinted was somewhat organized or semi-regulated, you will see floodgates open like never before. I think because there is a lot of people restricting themselves.
Right.
Having said that, obviously one set of investors are very clear on this that they would like to play only on casual or content which is totally on one side of the spectrum. And then there is a separate set of investors who are watching legislation closely. And then there have been traditional investors who have followed big volumes of money into one particular sector, despite it being, RMG and more on the sports side. So there have been you're looking at it from different directions. Having said all of that, I think what people are realizing is that there is there is going to be there is going to be continued judicial intervention in this. Some of it has gone in the positive direction. People have to take belief in that and the fact that you have 85, 86% free to play games of skill kind of environment. And and you have to then play downsides and upsides from that. And the third thing is the ability of many of these businesses to diversify beyond Indian borders. I think MPL has done it successfully in some markets. Baazi may be exploring and others. So that is something I think which also many investors would look at, because as a mitigation, that should something go wrong in very deeply, then how do we mitigate it? So those teams which are able to mitigate this strongly, have the abilities to cross borders, have the ability to create content which is world appealing rather than only India appealing, are probably the ones which are better to back than ones which are very, very uh, purely centric and purely linked to the regulatory risk.
Got it. Salone, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of noise around RMG, but we forget that India has a very thriving casual gaming content gaming ecosystem as well. For the longest time, nobody thought that battle royale first-person shooter games would ever do well, and then there was the emergence of PUBG, and then soon after that there was Free Fire, and now mid-core games like Genshin Impact are also monetizing. We forget that there's a very large, thriving industry of casual games which is supported by ad-based monetization as well as now in-app purchases as well. So, and that is rivaling. And RMG is a bit of a black box, right? Because it's off the app store, and you kind of compiling these which are largely it's very privately. It is growing and growing. RMG will be one of the larger games. There's gaming, there's casual, there's hyper casual. All of these various slices and genres will emerge. Indians are becoming more sophisticated, and there is a growing appetite for mid-core gaming as well. And that is a matter of time before all these formats and genres start to take shape. No, gaming is no stranger to regulation, right? In Japan, they banned gacha. In Europe, they banned loot boxes. So there have always been these pull and push from regulators, and regulators have always been a little bit behind about how gaming companies operate, and it's only a matter of time before governments catch up to where the ecosystem is. Gaming is not going away, and that's the reality. More and more people who are starting to play games, and in India, they're not only becoming first-time mobile phone users, but they're becoming first-time gamers. And all of this new, I guess, habit that has been cultivated over the pandemic, it's not going to go away. We've seen new normals of usage and behavior and adoption of gaming actually come back to better user numbers than even pre-COVID levels, and those numbers have stayed, those users have stayed. So this now behavior has become very entrenched. And so for us, look, we view it as one genre. RMG is one genre, one particular classification of gaming, and there's just a much wider berth to
Yeah.
invest.
No, I agree with that 100%. I think just for casual to be in repeat with restrictions on use. Like, is that something we should be concerned about?
I think that's with targeting minors. And if you are to look at the regulation around gaming in China and the restrictions that have been imposed, is particularly around gamings with around minors, right? And those restrictions are something that I feel are very China specific, given the evolution of the market. Gaming has been something that has already kind of been intrinsic, and the kind of usage that we are seeing in China, it's a 15-year-old industry that's not there in India at the moment. That level of immersion is not there in India at the moment. So it's not an apples to apples comparison, and hence it makes no sense to apply that
Sure.
in India.
Sure. Okay, let's switch it up and take a question from the audience. We just got something that came through, so I'll put this out to the group, and whoever wants to pick it up first can. But to start, what So here's a question that came in. It just said, what are the new gaming genres that you guys see the most potential in for the Indian market that are emerging? Maybe we can start with the gaming companies and then switch over to Pankaj and Salone.
Uh, I totally do not agree with Saloni. I mean, yes, but when I spoke about RMG, you know, why I said that is because
No, no,
RMG.
sorry, Suman. I was just talking about we've passed. Sorry to interrupt you. We've passed the regulatory question. I just wanted to, because since we're running short on time, I wanted to ask the audience question that we have in. What are you guys thinking about to
Is okay. Fantasy gaming genre is because fundamentally kick it, and in
Gaurav?
No, I think on the different genres, yes, all sorts of games, casual, hyper casual, would come into play. Like we were discussing slightly, sometime back, Saloni only said that the lack of capital and the people have to stay afloat. That is why probably the real cash gaming with the quick, money back card games, were required. In fact, when we started off our journey with poker, we've been hugely successful and always had a positive bottom line. But when we entered into fantasy, we realized that this requires a lot of burn. And, so, and it's still, I'm looking at, actually look at more, I think that casual to act through various methods.
Just to add up, I think and second is really, I think Indian ethnic casual. We have to see some good stories come out. I think Saloni, maybe you guys are following more of that, but I think that's where I think one new category could emerge. But we are early days on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I think
India has so much. Sorry, just to respond to what you're saying. I mean, India has so much cultural capital, right? That so much
Yeah.
natural content that can be used in a gaming context. I think Saloni, you invested in one of these studios
yeah.
that is focusing on that type of content. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think definitely, mid-core India first content is an area of interest and focus for us. We've already made 2 bets in that space. Studio Sera was the last one, which are building digital CCGs on leveraging Indian mythology and Indian history. The second big theme, at least for gaming from our perspective, is going to be the platformization of the game of gaming in gaming or some of these other formats that we're seeing. Opportunity to see the rise of an India first game publisher as well. We currently have only one. There is enough depth in the East Public to West.
Great. Well, look, it's been a really interesting session. I had so many more questions I wanted to ask all of you, but we'll have to push it to another time. I'd like to just let you all kind of finish up with kind of one statement that you want to put out to the market. Maybe we can just go around the table. Gaurav, can start with you.
I think pretty much I've said everything, and I see a lot of future, at least in the next 5 to 6 years, for the gaming industry. And the way we have been going month on month, quarter on quarter,
Pankaj?
I think 800 million came in the first 6 months, and in the next 6 and 12 and 24 months, you will see this multiply as we go.
Great. Suman?
We might need to find a way to activate those viewers as a gamers. That could be a very big potential as a
I love
market.
that. Yeah, I love that. Saloni?
Yeah, well, if you're building a gaming company or a game development company, come talk to Lumika.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, look, guys, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. It was honestly a illuminating discussion. And
And engaging about it. We would like to thank our title partner Games 24/7, powered by partner Apps Flyer, in association with partner Tracker, platinum partner OnePlus, content delivery partner Limelight Networks, supported by Invest India and knowledge partner Reds here. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned. Thanks.
Thank you.